Hello and welcome to this open mic session as a part of the Disruptive Innovation Festival. We've made it into the fourth week of the DIF and we're very happy to welcome our viewers today. Today I'm joined by Denise de Merg and in this session titled Made Out of What. She's got a set of very interesting and exciting designers with her today, and she's going to talk us through a session that involves some presentation but also some audience interaction. That interaction can take two forms, so please either send in your questions via the Google Hangout feature, which you'll find either in the bottom left hand corner of your screen if you're on the event page, or along the right hand stream of your page. The other way, if it doesn't permit you to do that because if you don't have a Google account, for example, or you just don't prefer to send your questions in that way, is to tweet us. So tweet us at ThinkDiff, which is hashtag ThinkDiff with just one F. Very pleased and very happy to be joined by Denise today. I should mention that we have a piece of pre-recorded content also online in relation to this session. That's on the event page that you'll be viewing it from. If you have seen it already, it might help stimulate some of the questions and discussion that you bring to this session. If not, I do recommend very highly to watch it in the aftermath of the session. I don't think it's essential viewing to be involved in this discussion, but I think it will really help the experience and give you more of a perspective on these thoughts and this topic. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Denise. Thank you so much for being with us today, Denise, and thank you for bringing this array of excellent designers with you as well.
Thank you, Seb. I'm really honored to be part of the Disruptive Innovation Festival. Just to ramble a little bit about where I'm coming from, I'm a conservator of contemporary art, which means that I'm involved in, contemporary artists and their materials, the problems with their materials. Anyway, it was called to my attention 30 years ago that artists were making furniture that had with very interesting purpose in mind. It was not form follows function. Their function had had some really imaginative and different purposes. For example, addressing social behavior, addressing politics, and all sorts of other things like that. And they used very unusual materials. So I sort of tracked that. I wrote a book 30 years ago called Artists Design Furniture. But I kept tracking that sort of impulse in the creative sector of our society. And 10 years ago, a trend sort of began to emerge, and actually strongly emerged throughout the world, which was indicating that artists and designers were becoming aware of the urgent problem that our planet was facing. Among them, of course, were the consumer proliferation of waste, addiction to commercialism. All of these things became fodder for their art, and they hung upon these armatures of furniture forms, all these concepts, and so there started to be this proliferation of furniture that was made out of unusual materials that evoked philosophical themes, political themes, social themes. That now lately has become even more pointed in addressing the problems of waste in the world, and designers now are in the forefront all over the world, in different places, in different ways, in different cultures. Are addressing this topic in a very practical way, rather than just an illustrative or sort of artistic commentary way, which means that they are now developing and pointing the way toward materials out of trash, literally out of trash. And I hope that everyone will take a look at the video, because there you will see many artists and iterations of this trend, which is just still, even though there's a lot of them on the video, the tip of the iceberg. And so, for this purpose, I've just, for the purposes of this open mic session, I've invited 3 designers who I feel complement each other in the promotion of the idea of the material of trash becoming an abundant raw material for use in high design. And I would like to start with Singh Intrachuto, who is sort of the alchemist of the group and has been for many years. He's based in Bangkok, has a master's degree from Auckland University and a PhD from MIT in material engineering or something. What is it exactly? So, anyway, Singh. So he has been teaching in Bangkok, which and with he formed a thing called the Scrap Lab, where he's gathered students to inculcate the sort of new ethos of making furniture out of found materials, and he's been experimenting. It's been sort of a playground of experimentation, but with really concrete results. Now, Singh has a company called Osisu. He is 50 industries are calling upon him for his materials that he's invented that are able to be transformed into contemporary, very contemporary and beautiful designs. And so I want you, Singh, to come and talk about your process, how you started thinking about materials in this way, and sort of how you evolved into this huge thing today.
Okay. Hi. I'm Singh. I'm based in Bangkok, like Denise was saying, and I'm an architect. I design buildings, usually office building condominiums. I wasn't planning to do furniture at all. That is not my background. I came to do the business of furniture making out of accident. You know, my focus is on eco-friendly green architecture, and we design energy-efficient architecture. Actually, at some point, I was observing that my projects that's supposed to be eco-friendly throw away a lot of trash from the construction site. So that was the beginning that I was teaching in class and practicing green architecture, and ended up throwing away a lot of materials. That was about 10 years ago. So initially I was just making, furniture, one of a kind sort of things. And after the first few years, I set up a company called Osisu that started exporting mostly to Europe, to the UK, actually, to Sweden, to the US. Product made from construction waste. Usually, at the beginning, I didn't think that I could turn this into mass production. At the time, a lot of people thought that furniture or products from scraps are sort of unique pieces. And I thought of it that way until the last 4 to 5 years. I am sponsored by the Ministry of Science in Thailand to help close to 60 manufacturers around Thailand. And that was the beginning that I started seeing the massive amount of scrap in each factory that supply my buildings. So I'm working with wood factory, lumber yard, glass facade, leather, textile manufacturing, food industry. So these became sort of an evolution for me, that I no longer work with materials that of limited amount or limited quantity. I start to work with material that has long supply chain that I can play with. So I start developing them into new materials. I work with a lot of companies to start closed loop production within their companies. And last year, after working with about 40 to 50 manufacturers, the Ministry of Natural Resources contacted me to start a new eco label called upcycling. So this year is the second year that we are applying, certifying products made of trash with the minimum requirement of 20% trash content or recycled content up to 100% to be certified for upcycling labeling. So that's the gist of what I've been doing for the last 8 to 10 years.
I'm wondering if is my microphone on?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. I would love it if you. I think you might be surrounded by some of the actual pieces that you've made, so that people can see the beauty of some of these materials that you've made. And I just want to mention some of them that caught my attention early on when I discovered you. It was compressed juice and milk cartons, pen fillers, lipstick cases, hospital waste, steel scraps, old ventilator grills, just to name a few things. And I know you're using food, and you just won an award in the Hong Kong Design Society for the Java Core, which was made out of coffee waste. So sky's the limit. I mean, I really consider you an alchemist of materials. So I would love for the viewers to see some of the actual materials in their form as pieces of furniture. So can you show us a few?
Yeah, there are a few things. For example, I made this material. I don't know if you can see this. This material is made from button scrap. Button like this, button scrap. I don't know if you know the production of buttons. Everybody has buttons, in their closets. So there are a lot of buttons being produced around the world. But if you know that the punching process leaves about 50% waste in the production processes of buttons. So what I did was to work with solid surface manufacturer, like what you use for countertops, and try to replace the virgin content with button scrap. And I think this is the first piece that I did a while back. So that's what it looked like, but it has many colors. Let me turn around to see some of the colors that you might see. This is another piece that turned into three-dimensional objects. I don't know whether you can see it from my iPad or not, but this one of the piece. So I can control the color. These are another color group. Anyhow, what Denise was saying that the reason I choose button scrap because of the long supply chain, or even the juice carton like this one. Also the same, because we throw away about 1 million juice carton a day in Thailand. So what I did was to focus on the material database first. If I deal with coffee waste, then I would have to look how much coffee waste I can play with, and would it make money for the manufacturer that I'm helping. So Starbucks was kind enough to help supplying all the coffee waste for these particular materials, bun scrap, and I don't know, you can see a lot of products now here.
Singh, did you say you were working with what's it, coffee? Starbucks.
Starbucks? Yes.
Is Starbucks coffee waste part of your material source?
Yes. So now Starbucks in Thailand, interior materials like countertop, condiment bar, mosaics, use coffee waste from their own ground coffee. So we start doing that with them for 3 years now.
That's wonderful.
So I think a lot when I was in the UK and tried to raise the issue that in Thailand we have upcycling labeling, and we try to raise it to international standards. And they found out that a lot of people who are using waste to make products are not working with manufacturer to produce mass quantity that you can actually reclaim tons and tons of waste. So it was a big discussion because they thought that it would be just art pieces, But what I'm doing here in Thailand is they are not art pieces. They are unlimited number of products that can be made, as long as they have a long supply chain. So even with hospital waste that you were talking about, you probably know that hospitals throw away a lot of materials, and half of them are clean and sterile. They are not contaminated. But usually, most people will be fearful of hospital waste. So now we are working with 3 hospitals, try to reclaim the clean materials and turn them into new products.
I wish that the viewers could see the beautiful ottoman that you made out of those polyester bags that hold sterile surgical tools. That was
yes.
really beautiful, the blue ottoman. That was really
Yes.
great. So, do you feel that your students that you've had at Katz Art University are taking up this this crusade that you have? Are you changing their minds? Are you developing a new generation of people thinking the way you do? Do you feel?
You know, I can't really answer that question yet, because I only offer this course, Scrap Lab, for 5 years. So in architectural training, it's a 5-year program. So they are about graduating. So we'll find out after they leave university how they will perform. If I have made some impact on them or not, that's way to be seen.
Well, it sounds like you're making an impact on the industry, which is really, really great, which will trickle down in all directions, I'm sure.
I hope so.
It will. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that you have a meeting early in the morning, and it's early in the morning already for you. So
it's after midnight in Bangkok. But I love to hear a few more of your presentation, and then I'll leave.
Okay, great.
After your presentation, so I'll stick around.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, Alex, how's it going with your student?
I'm just waiting to see if Seb's uploaded it yet. The slideshow.
I'm just going to introduce you. This is Alex Groves of Studio Swine, which is an acronym for Super Wide Interdisciplinary New Exploration, which is by gum, that's exactly what you're doing. So, and your partner, Alex is a fine artist, and his partner is an architect, Azusa Murakami. And together they are breaking new ground and spreading the word of the circular economy in yet another way, which is very available to everyone. And I mean, you've made it available, but also the idea of open source instruction is brilliant. And so you've made the C chair, and I want you to talk about that and what called your attention to ocean plastic. And I love also in your work how you call upon or are sensitive to traditions of furniture making and approaches to creating solutions to our living environment. So take it away.
Okay, great. You should be able to see a slideshow, and the first image is a city. Do you see that?
Nope.
So on Seb's profile, if you click on Seb's profile, you'll see a city, and Seb's presenting. Do you see that?
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute.
They see it, Alex.
Yeah, great. Okay,
yeah.
So I've just got it's a very short presentation, and because of the order of my slides, I'm going to talk about another project which uses waste aluminium first, and then I'll go on to sea chair, but it's very short. So essentially, this is Sao Paulo, and Azusa and I went over there to do a work. So next slide. And it's got the most amount of helicopters in the world and the largest amount of high-rises, but their waste collection system, if you go to the next slide, is actually done by these guys. These represent 80% of the recycling in Sao Paulo is actually done by independent waste collectors called catadores, and they don't work for the government, they just work independently, and they make a very small salary from waste that they collect. They go and take it to scrap yards to sell it by weight. So if we see the next slide. So this is two brothers that collect waste, and we started working with them. Next slide. And we were looking into a new model of manufacturing for the city. So taking waste on the street usually goes to factories to get melted down and made into industrial products, but we wanted to enable the guys to make more income with the waste that they collect. So next slide. This is like our analysis of the carts that they use, and these are the materials that they collect within it. So next slide. And so aluminium in Sao Paulo is collected on a massive scale, and it comes into the country from various places, and Sao Paulo actually recycles the most amount in the world. If you go to the next slide. So we wanted to recycle it ourselves on the street, so we designed a mobile foundry that essentially where they could cast aluminium furniture on the street. If we go to the next slide. And so we made our foundry out of scrap material at big metal scrapyard in Sao Paulo. Next. And this is a furnace that we made out of just scrap metal, really cheap. It was like $100 to make this furnace. Next. And so we needed a fuel for the furnace. And in Sao Paulo, they eat a lot of fried food. And so there's all this vegetable oil that's totally waste and can get thrown down the drains, and it makes it blocks drains and it causes like river pollution. So we want to use this vegetable oil. So next. So we collected this oil from food stalls and restaurants. Next. And then now we needed a way of actually casting the furniture itself, because aluminium usually is cast in, say, cast iron molds that cost a lot, and it would be really heavy and expensive. So we went to the ancient method of sand casting. This is, we could get sand from construction sites all across the city. And if we go to the next slide. So we started making these molds out of just waste we found on the streets. This is a palm frond. Next. And this is the furnace itself. Next slide. And yeah, so we're collecting here waste. We'll go next. And ventilation bricks. And yeah, next. And so we could actually use this foundry on the streets to cast in situ, like items that people might need or want, totally bypassing large industrial scale things. So it's cast on demand. So when people need something, they can cast it rather than like kind of making lots and lots of things and being like wasted on storage. Next. This is the oil going into the furnace. Next. And the furnace firing up, it preheats the oil with a jet of flame that comes out the side. Next. And this we could put the cans in to make meltdown aluminium. Next. And so we can tap the aluminium out the bottom of the furnace. Next. Next. And we could cast these furniture pieces. Next. Next. Yeah, next. So the idea is that usually aluminium is made industrially and it's very like machined, but this one is like totally individual each time, and it's much more like handcrafted, and it's kind of empowering these waste collectors. If you go to the next slide. Next. And these are some stalls that we made for the food stalls that supplied us with the drinking cans and the aluminium, the vegetable oil. So it kind of went back to the streets, and then we started making more perfect furniture. Like this is a kind of piece that's inspired by tropical modernism. Again, it's totally recycled aluminium using the waste vegetable oil, and it's a much cleaner fuel than other fuels. Next. And this is some cactus shaped things for the coffee table. And then we took glass bottles and we had them heated very slowly. Next slide. In a glass foundry, glass workshop, and they were hand blown into these tropical shapes. Next. So these are bottles that were beer bottles, and instead of crushing them down into a cullet and melting them down and then having this glass with a lot of bubbles in, it's instead slowly heated and just blown from the bottle shape straight into this light bulbs with LED fittings. Next. So it uses a lot less energy than if you were to smash it down and heat the whole thing up again. Next. And we made this cactus-shaped standing light, which is all with beer bottles, and then the wood itself is pine wood offcuts from the carpentry workshop that have been glued together and then returned into this kind of cactus light. So this is a softwood, it's not using tropical hardwood. Next. And this is a small collection together. Next. And so sea chair, so we became aware of all the plastic in the ocean. Next. And you hear these huge figures. Next. That it collects in these gyres, and there's over 100 million tons in the ocean, and you can't get your head around these massive numbers. Next. So we wanted to go to somewhere in the UK and see how it's affecting our own shores, and so we drove down from London to Porthauen. This is a beach in Cornwall. It's a beautiful beach, and we began investigating it. Next. And at first it looked like there was no plastic, but actually on close inspection there's like all these thousands of little pieces of plastic, and even nurdles which haven't been used yet by industry, and yet they've got into our oceans and got to our beaches, because it's the most shipped item around the world globally. So sometimes in storms they fall off, the shipping containers fall off boats, or they're not stored properly at factories and they go down storm drains. And so this is the average kind of collection we'd get from a beach, which is just like a whole mix of wood and plastic together. Next. But we needed a way of sorting it. So we found out that beaches in the UK, they used to be panned and sorted for gold and other precious materials like silver. And so we started our own beach kind of sorting system. Next. And this inspired us to make this really simple machine that has a hand water pump. It pumps fresh water into the top of this machine, and then we found that the plastic floats in the fresh water, and the wood we can waterlog and it can sink out. So we removed a lot of wood and seaweed with this separation technique. Next. And so we had all this seaweed left over, and so we dried that and made these briquettes, which is like a dry seaweed kind of fuel. Next. And this fueled this furnace that we made, this furnace with scrap metal again and a hydraulic press. So basically we could heat these samples of plastic ourselves. Next. And so we could color separate the large plastic into different colors, and then we ground it down, then we heat pressed it. Next. And what we really wanted to do is go on the back of a fishing boat. So we started going to sea on fishing boats, but then we found that there's no space for our furnace because they just use all the space on the boat. Next. So we had to build a much smaller furnace. Next. These are stills from a film that we made about it. So we went out, fishermen get plastic in the nets with the fish, and usually that plastic gets thrown back. Next. But there is a campaign in Britain called Fishing for Litter, and they're collecting hundreds of tons of plastic by getting fishermen to bring the plastic back into shore. Next. And so we began melting the plastic on the boat because we wanted to really raise awareness, and this film, the film that we made of us making a chair on the back of the boat, went viral, and it got over 300,000 views and got in press all around the world. So although it's not the best place to make a chair, it certainly helped raise awareness about the plastic at sea. Next. And this is a chair that we made, and each one is individually tagged with the location of where it was made, so it has a geographic location like fish tag almost. Next. And so the thing we wanted to do next would go to the North Atlantic gyre, and the plastic collects in these great gyres in the middle of the ocean where the currents just swirl round. Next. So we took a boat from the Azores to the Canary Islands, and it's over 1,000 nautical miles. Next. And we made a new machine that basically is a parabolic mirror, so it takes the sun's energy and it concentrates it into one hot spot on an extruding screw, so we can put in plastic and melt it and extrude it. The idea is that plastic is something that's all over the world. Even in deserts you get plastic. In the middle of these oceans where there's like zero civilization, you get plastic. So we wanted a machine that didn't need any external power and could just be run on the sun. And so this is this machine that we made that uses a hand winch to extrude and a parabolic mirror to melt the plastic. Next. And so we took it on this boat. This is just a rendering because we did a crowdsourcing campaign to raise money for it, so showing what it would look like. But then this is the real thing, because we've done the journey now in October, and so we did it with, we're making a new film that we're editing now about the journey. So that's the machine on the front of the boat, on the bow. And yeah, that's coming next. So that's the end of the presentation, and yeah. It's, the next phase of the project is making a film and making objects with this new machine. It's like a 3D printer at sea.
Well, I love the evolution of your work, and you absolutely leave no scrap unused. And as far that notion of the object of desire as agent of change is absolutely embodied in the work that you do, because you make things out of this waste material. You transform it into objects of real beauty and desirability, and you make me want to have an aluminum chair and a beer bottle chandelier. I'm really impressed with the way that you're able to spread the word. I know that we talked about how your open source C chair, which went viral on the internet, has resulted in people duplicating your methods thanks to your diagrams and instructions, making tours as far away as Chile. So that's really great way to spread this sort of consciousness and empowering ethos around the world, and I congratulate you and Azusa. It's just fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that both with Singman as well, that was like amazing. So it's all about recycled things don't have to compromise on aesthetics. And we've seen that in the first presentation, definitely, that you can have these beautiful materials that it's not a compromise on aesthetics, it's just as beautiful, and it gives design a reason as well. And that's something that's really important to us, because sustainable design has got to compete with new products out there. And yeah.
Well, I think there's also the feel-good added value, because people are knowing that they're promoting a new sort of economy, a new way of going about doing things, and which is becoming more and more necessary and more crucial in this time. So really good. So your film is the next endeavor.
Yeah.
Are you looking at any other materials for?
Any other what?
Any other material sources for?
Oh, not yet. No, we just want to really see what we can do with sea plastic, and really try and use the film to. We want to also use the film to bring attention to alternatives to plastic. So we all know that one of the most common items on beaches is toothbrushes, and we go through so many plastic toothbrushes, and so we'd like to draw attention to products that are already out there, like bamboo toothbrushes, and there's all kinds of non-plastic sticky tapes and amazing products. We have the answers now to solve the problems that we're in. We just need to really start backing them and getting behind them. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I salute you for leading the charge. It's really inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to introduce Rodney Allen Trice, who is a Brooklyn creative person who has been shaking things up down there in New York for quite a while, and also spreading the word in his own way, television pilots, all sorts of workshops. Tell us about your work, Rodney.
All right. Well, first, Denise, thank you. It's really awesome to be a part of this. I'm finding myself looking at these fellow people that I'm here with, all of you guys, and I'm like, wow, I'm dealing with scientists here. This is awesome. I think it's interesting that you used the quote that you did in the film for me about, if you listen to an object long enough, it'll tell you what it wants to be. And I think part of why that's really interesting is that it really gets to the heart of what my approach to this has always been. I mean, I was a small child and I had pockets full of action figures or Cracker Jack toys or Matchbox cars or coins or pebbles that I found. You know, I was the 9-year-old that would dig in the trash and say, "Mom, why did you throw away this bottle? Look, it's kind of great." No idea what I was going to do with it, but it was still, I could, even at that age, I think I recognized that there were kind of objects that were kind of wonderful and terrific, and well, do they have to be thrown away? So in 1989, when I arrived to New York City and Brooklyn, my favorite place in the world, and I could not have fallen into more of a bigger treasure of stuff that was just being tossed, and so many friends in the arts who were redoing their homes and stuff with things that they had found. And I sort of started to do the same thing, but as soon as I managed to save enough money to decide that I was going to be a grown-up now and furnish my house, I ran off to Soho, an area in Manhattan, for those that don't know, which at the time had a lot of contemporary furniture shops, and ran into one, pointed to the very well-known wooden Ames chair, which I didn't at the time even know who the Ameses were, and I pointed to it with excitement, thinking, oh, my first piece. And as the guy continued to talk on and on and on and on about it, I just kept thinking, oh my goodness, this thing is getting more expensive. And when he told me $3,600, I laughed and said, no, I don't want a whole table and chair set, I just want a chair. And he politely laughed and said, oh, sir, that is the chair. So I went home with my tail between my legs, and that is when I received my walking papers to do what I began to do. That's where the journey began. Some years later, after I began to sort of work out this approach, I managed to make it to the International Contemporary Furniture Fair, for which afterwards the response was so amazing. I got contacted from eco events that I had never heard of. This whole environmental thing suddenly was chasing me down, and I kind of freaked out because I didn't initially start this with an eco mindset. I mean, I really just was working with what I had, and I loved objects. So I just began. And I kept actually avoiding them or not returning phone calls to things like this, because I just thought, oh no, I don't want to go down like Milli Vanilli. That was a mess. So, but in the 20-some years that I've been doing this, it sort of began to be a thing where I started to realize, you put your ear to the wall and you start to listen to the right news venues and you start to pay attention to these things. And I started to not so immediately run away from these things. I started to read about them, and the awareness of the impact that my work has in what really is a responsibility that the human race needs to face seriously. That all began to change, and suddenly I became aware of the fact that reusing materials and greater percentages of my objects that I was designing were becoming larger quantities of reused materials. It varies, but ultimately, you know, I'm banging away in my studio and creating objects. Furniture and lighting is my focus. And I got to a point where I realized that, you know, if I absolutely, endlessly, sleeplessly banged away and created objects, that I would not even scratch the surface of the human waste production and the amount of masses of things that are being tossed. So I realized I can't do this alone, and that's when, Denise, like you said, I began to look into teaching. So applieddeconstruction101.com is my website where I run my classes. They're really simple. I think my focus base is to bring individuals into a space where, with humor and wit, that we kind of begin to make a playful avenue for the average consumer, the average just person, to begin to reconsider things right before they throw them in the trash. Say, wait, stop. Somebody I saw made this amazing lamp. Let me figure it out because this would be cool. And the empowerment that you can give people over their own lives by helping them find these things and helping them make their own stuff, helping them create their own environments is astounding. And I think it's kind of infectious where people start doing it and then they want to do it again and they want to do it again and they want to do it again and then they inspire their friends. So I started the classes. But that led to where, you know, in classes, myself alone, I can only do so much. So that then led to the beginning discussions of a TV pilot, which refittingtheplanet.com is the website hub of the TV show. Right now it's a pitch. We're hustling it everywhere. But we realized if we reach a larger audience, if we teach on that level, then we can start to make a little more than just a scratch in the surface. I think my focus is really about so many objects that we have around us. In my class, I teach so much about, you know, from the very beginning, you know, you buy that cheap $10 fan from a pharmacy because the house is hot and you want to cool off. When that fan stops working, because it will, it was only $10, it's probably not going to make it through the season, you're going to have no love lost to throw it in the garbage. But you buy that nice one, that one that looks attractive, the one that you saw and you loved. Okay, 3 years down the road when it dies, you don't want to let go of it. Maybe there's something else you can do with it. So right from the very beginning in my classes, I talk to people a lot about, first, it comes with what you purchase, the objects that you buy. We live in an economy that's based on purchasing, buying and selling. So if I can, you know, just positively affect people's mindsets on what they buy in the beginning, then when its first purpose dies, that gives the option to turn it into something else. So a lot of that's inspiring, but also the inspiring of the, like, you can do this. You can make this a lamp. You can make this a chair. You can do this. You can do this. In my studio, I have a few floor tools, but I've also worked very hard to keep most of what I do hand tools, because anybody can learn how to use a hand drill or a hand jigsaw. I try to keep all of what I do kind of within reach of the average person. Although my own work is growing bigger and bigger, because I'm also right now launching the very beginnings. There's 7 designs that we are really waiting and hustling to get the finance so that we can move into engineering. But in conjunction with Miami's Art Basel, which happens in the beginning of December, we are right now working on building a house using aircraft. And I had a few discussions about this, and everybody unanimously agreed that for me, the way I approach my furniture and lighting, that we really should focus my energy on using really large objects and converting them in the same way that I convert a lot of the small home objects. Because in that, you can create brand new things while not losing the identity of its past. And by not losing the identity of its past, people are excited because they see what it was and what it became. It, again, focusing on inspiring people to realize that there are a lot of brilliant objects around us that we toss away so easily because it's like, oh, it doesn't work as its main purpose anymore, so let's just throw it away. And I want to keep screaming. I keep calling it my scream, but my scream is, no, objects have more, objects have more, objects have more. And I think the house is now affecting my own work because now I'm getting into larger pieces with my work. And for the first time in my life, I'm starting to see a kind of collection forming. And for me, in the idea of teaching, the nice thing about the collection is that there are certain, like through the pilot and the idea that a lot of the instructional videos will be on our website, the refittingthe.com website. The nice thing about that is that it gives me the chance, by having a collection, to consolidate and make it easier to deliver instructional videos that actually do help people do things, and they can apply to several projects. So it's...
I love this sort of empowering element of your work. Do you have just something that you can just show us quickly that's in your environment?
Well, this one. This piece, can you see? This one is one that gets a lot of attention and humor. I'm trying to see if you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
It's a walker. It's a liquor cart made out of a walker. That inspiration came from, well, let me tell you, for those of you that don't know the United States and don't know about Florida, I've been told by more people than I can count to get this thing to Florida and sell hundreds of them there. But it was first inspired by this piece behind me, which is a bar made out of crutches. That whole, you know, it's the humor and the wit. Sometimes I think, you know, people take their homes and their lives in the design world very seriously, and sometimes I think the wit can be a hindrance. But I've learned to use it because when it comes to teaching and inspiring, wit and humor really kind of help the ideas stick. Sure,
for sure, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, I think that's a really an invitation to and an inspiration to making people feel that they can look at an object. You're really effective in conveying the idea that a piece of used up miserable furniture can become another useful object and have another life.
Yeah.
I feel like all of the designers here, you three, have really contributed to spreading the word of recycling, of new norms, of making things, you're really making a dent in thinking about trash as a viable raw material, and the process of using it is also included in your demonstrations and work. So it's really inspiring to me, and I hope to the audience, and who I'm hoping can see that we're on a really good track here. That there's that in the words of to paraphrase one of the designers in my video, who is Aaron Kramer from California, trash is simply the failure of imagination. So I really salute all of you for using your imagination and your skills and your brilliance to craft new ideas and promote this new ethos that we so desperately need right now. It's really urgent for us to be able, design is a really good avenue for convincing the world that trash has other uses other than polluting our biosphere, and can be made into things that promote and enhance our lives. Anyway, so I just wondering, do you have any closing thoughts, Alex?
Would it be possible to ask a couple of quick questions from the audience, and maybe from some of the ones that I've had in the lead up to this session? We have a couple for me to chuck a few of those in there to the discussion for the last sort of 5 or 6 minutes. Do you think we have time, Denise?
Sure. I mean, what are some of the questions?
So we had one in via Twitter that said, how quickly is customer demand growing for upcycle designs? How do we spread the word and educate more customers?
Well, I think these 3 designers, for example, are examples of how we spread the word, each in their own ways. You know, approaching industry on a huge scale, spreading the word brilliantly through open source films, using materials, you know, showing in a very basic way how materials can be transformed, and anyone can do it, and also looking at objects as raw material just in and of themselves, without even transformation. You can make things out of things, and I think that all of these people are teaching, making films, spreading the word in that way. I know that there's a whole faction of high-end furniture that is selling quite well in auction houses and design galleries, that is made out of second use stuff, and in that valuation that becomes high end, that points out the beauty and the cleverness of design, and of the usefulness of the material and its inherent properties. This is also spreading the word. This is you know, it's becoming something of value on all levels of society, not just traditional. Not just in traditional, where they've been recycling for centuries, but in we're sort of getting the message delivered in this sort of high-end sector as well, and I think all of that contributes to spreading the word.
I think it's all experimental too, where it's a financial marketplace that's forming. So, you know, who knows? It's all like growing in certain areas, and then those areas are going to temper out, and then there's going to be other areas explode. I think we are, all of us here, I think, are forging forward into an arena that, like, we have yet to see how all it will develop and grow.
Sing. I think you're muted.
Yeah, Sing, you'll just have to unmute yourself to comment. It just hovers to the top of your screen, and you should be able to see where you can click the button to unmute.
Well, anyway, I was hoping that Singh would be able to address his work with governments, you know, with actual classes of materials, and, you know, all of that sort of thing, which is really making an impact.
Okay, so Singh, just to be clear, if you hover to the top of your Hangout window, you should see a microphone button, and it'll be red. If you click on it, it will turn it.
I just dropped out. Did you get it?
I'm afraid we seem to have lost Singh on this one, Denise. We can't hear him for now, unless he can figure out his muting issue. There are some questions that come in the stream. I know that we're very tight on time, but it would be nice to just try and feed a few of those in. Do you want me to sort of pick a couple for you?
Sure.
So we've had a question from, there's 2 sort of related questions from Dara. One is, can you tell me a little bit about the business cases behind these products? So I guess the question there is whether their role is inspirational, or whether there's also an economic opportunity there. And the follow-up question, I think, from him was, a lot of the examples you were mentioning seem to be produced in quite low quantities. Are there opportunities to scale up, or potentially he's misinterpreted and they actually have been scaled up? So I don't know if yourself or a couple of designers might have a viewpoint on that.
Was that a question for Alex?
Well, anyone who wants to take it, I think.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, you want to address it?
Yeah. So I'd say that we're not personally at Studio Swine. We're not designers of mass production at all, but we are designers of mass communication. So you know, we've been able to get a lot of the message out there with our small production, and it has made a difference to the cartmen in Sao Paulo. They can make much more money selling aluminium furniture than they can from selling the cans. So that's good. I'm sure that Singh would have really great things to say about like his products, because they're working with industry. So it's a shame that he's muted. But
yeah, I would love to hear what he has to say, because he seems to have mastered the whole dancing with the giant corporations. Myself, in America, oh my God.
Do you want to try just leaving and re-entering the Hangout? Try leaving and re-entering the Hangout, and hopefully that'll re-enable your voice.
Sing, unmute yourself. There's a little microphone at the top. You have to click on it.
Do you want to carry on with some of these questions? So we've got one about Studio Swine specifically, which is, do Studio Swine have any plans to expand on a commercial basis in the UK to facilitate that? So kickstarted behavioural change, as Rodney Trice's experience is of course very important, is the headline to that question. Then, do Studio Swine have any plans to expand on a commercial basis in the UK to facilitate that? That's from Caroline.
Yeah, actually, we've got plans to commercialise the bottle bulbs, not actually in the UK, but in Sao Paulo. So we're talking to a really big interior design company out there to have more mass production. And then we're trying to think what else. Oh, we're working with a lot of reclaimed wood in England at the moment. So that would be for public furniture. So yeah, it is changing. We are getting more industrial.
I think we can probably hear you now, Singman.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, I would just like to say that 4 years ago, I only worked with 3 manufacturers. And 4 years later, which is this year in 2014, I'm working with 47 manufacturers. So clearly, that's a real growth between 4 to 5 years, within this 4 to 5 year span. And initially, when I was working with upcycling products from scraps, I wasn't making money. That is because I wasn't checking the supply chain first. If you don't check the supply chain, you don't know the exact amount of what you have. You cannot take order from customers. For example, customer would like 400 chairs. You can only respond with whether you can supply that or not, if and only if you have the database of your materials. And I think that's what helped me turn my business, Osisu, around from just fun and game business into a profit-making business in the recent years.
It's a great answer, Singman. I think, I don't know if you have some closing comments, Denise, and you would like to invite some closing comments, as we're just hitting on the edge of our time now, sadly.
Okay, well, I wanted to thank all of the participants, my 3 participants, for so illuminating the way forward for us all. And I'm really excited about that the Disruptive Innovation Festival is bringing together all this thought and innovation and this conversation, this global conversation, which I hope continues. And I thank you all, and onward. Does anyone have any?
Thanks, Denise. I thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to hear from both from both of you as well. That I haven't met you guys before, but I hope we can continue some collaboration in the future.
Oh, yeah. That'd be awesome.
Good luck with all your endeavors.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you to Denise for sort of organising and creating this session. Thank you for this open mic production as part of the Disruptive Innovation Festival. And thank you for the 3 interesting gentlemen designers who are doing some really fascinating work with waste material. And I just want to signpost very quickly a session that's happening tomorrow that I'm sure will interest a lot of the audience. And I want to thank you to the audience as well for submitting your questions and for your attention during the last hour. Tomorrow we have our headliner grand finale event, which will feature a double header. It will feature Janine Benyus and Michael Paul on the topic of design and design inspired by nature, biomimicry. They'll be joined by Al Jazeera presenter and broadcaster, American Al Jazeera presenter and broadcaster Ali Velshi for an hour from 5 till 6, and then immediately followed from 6 till 7 by Rachel Botsman, the renowned sharing economy expert, and David Rowan, Wired UK magazine editor, from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, talking about emerging technologies and their impact upon the global economy, or future impact on the global economy. Sorry to those whose questions we did not reach today, but I know that this group of people are very interested in carrying the discussion forward. I'm sure we can do something with the event page to ensure that you can reach out and contact them to your aftermath. And I'd also remind you there's a short 6 to 7 minute video on the event page that covers the topic more broadly and showcases and talks about some of the work that's going on around the world. So one final thank you to Denise and Rodney and Singman and Alex, and thank you again for joining the Disruptive Innovation Festival. We hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.